Seit 2006 und insbesondere seit Beginn des NSU-Prozesses 2013 fordert der Vater von Halit, Ismail Yozgat, dass Verantwortliche des NSU-Prozesses eine Vorortbesichtigung im Internetcafé, in dem sein Sohn ermordet wurde, machen. Dies geschah bisher nicht. In seiner Rede am Gedenktag 2016 sagte Ismail Yozgat, und ich zitiere, denn Temel lügt. Temel hat entweder meinen Sohn erschossen oder die Mörder gesehen. Sollte es keine Vorortbesichtigung geben und die Ungereimtheiten von dem damaligen Mitarbeiter des Hessischen Untersuchungslandesamtes für Verfassungsschutz nicht aufgeklärt werden, weil der Senat Temme glaubt, ist für uns das gesprochene Urteil bei Beendigung des Prozesses vor Gericht nichtig. Wir werden das Urteil nicht anerkennen. Ich wiederhole, der Verfassungsschützer der Regierung hat meinen Sohn entweder getötet oder hat die Mörder gesehen. Zitat Ende. Um die Analyse und die Forderungen der Familie Yozgat zu unterstützen, hat das Tribunal Forensic Architecture um ihre Mithilfe gebeten. Denn wir alle haben eine Verpflichtung gegenüber den Opfern und deren Familien, die wir einlösen müssen. Darum gibt es das Tribunal. Erste Ergebnisse dieser Untersuchung wurden vor 2 Monaten am 6. April in Kassel veröffentlicht. Heute zeigen Forensic Architecture weitere Teile ihrer Untersuchung und wir sind gespannt auf ihre Präsentation. Damit übergebe ich das Wort an Eyal und Christina.
Thank you. Thank you for this invitation. Thank you, Aisha, for the introduction. I think that when presenting you the results of our investigation, it is important to say that the team that has undertaken that investigation is the same team that in recent years has undertaken investigation in various areas of conflict worldwide. It's a team of Israeli and Greek architects, but also include Syrian architects, include photographers and filmmakers from Britain and from Germany. And I think that I would like to start with that statement in order to impress upon you that sometimes the human right gaze that tends to be very Eurocentric. It comes from Europe. European human rights groups are investigating human rights violation in other places worldwide, can also be inversed. And that in a situation when distrust in the state institutions and in the police is so low, we need to sometimes apply the same techniques of human rights investigation that we would apply on other places. And this is really the heart of what counterforensics is. Counterforensics comes not to replace police investigations. In fact, in counterforensics, very often it is the state institution, like the police, like the court, like the secret services of all their different variations, that are those that are being investigated. And sometimes for a counterforensic investigation to take place, we need alternative forums, not only alternative methods. And I think that this tribunal is an excellent example of an alternative institution, an alternative forum that pops up precisely because the existing state forums in which that subject has been presented and debated are inadequate, as we heard in a very beautiful theatrical reading that happened right before us. The tribunal is also important because our testimony, as some of you might have heard, was denied or we did not get the opportunity to present in the Munich court that was scheduled for yesterday. But still, I think that this very fact makes this tribunal even more important. It is there to discharge this duty to the German public and the families of the victims, and in this case, particularly to the Yozgat family, for the investigation and for the truth about this event to still be searched and to be presented. Everything that we have investigated in this case, and this is yet another very important feature in our investigation, is open source material. That means material that exists, that is available to everybody. What we do in forensic architecture is that we look again. We go back to material and we take a long and sometimes very intense look at material that is everywhere. We work, we cross-reference bits of data, and we make our determination on precisely that which is available for everybody, that which is available to the public. And in that there is also a kind of a call and a lesson in looking at what does it take to look carefully at evidence. Our question is very different than the question of the police. It is not our question, as we got commissioned from the tribunal, was not to say who killed Khalid Yozgat on that horrible evening on the 6th of April 2006, but to investigate a testimony and to say whether the testimony of a particular individual, Andreas Temme, we heard about him before, is at all possible. And therefore, we kind of intensify the question onto a very, very small point. Civil society forensics cannot, like the police, look at all the killings that have taken place with all intense intensivity, and somehow the question from the tribunal was to focus all our attention. And when I say focus all our attention, it's a team of about 5 or 6 people that spent the past 6 months almost exclusively looking at 9.5 minutes and 77 square meters, right? And these are very important, this short duration of time and the 77 square meter. Because in that 77 square meter and during that 9.5 minutes, we have the participants or representative of all the participants that somehow make this drama. We have obviously the communities that have suffered violence. We have also, of course, the killers that performed it, but we also have a state agent. So we have the state, the murderer, and the victim. And it is also possible that 2 of those parties are actually one. So we need to, in fact, answer or shed light on this very small question of the 77 square meter and the 9.5 minutes, so that much larger questions could emanate from it. Of course, you know the reenactment video. You know the, how to go back? Yeah. You know the reenactment video of Andreas Temme. It was leaked back in 2015. As I said, in our office, usually we look at videos of bombs falling in Gaza or in Iraq or in Syria, and we undertake a very, very close analysis of the video. In fact, for us, this video, this reenactment video that Andreas Temme has actually filmed with the police a few weeks after the killing, when his presence was discovered, is the alleged violation, right? So we are not looking here at a representation of an event, but we are looking here at a crime, potentially at an alleged crime as it is taking place, right? So we analyze that crime. the crime of perjury, and from it, whatever else would be implied of it. So what we undertake in those 6 months that we were working on this project is a certain reenactment of the reenactment, right? A representation and analysis, very detailed analysis of that representation. Now, in order to do it, we needed to basically construct, I said we are looking at 77 square meter and 9.5 minutes. We needed to reconstruct both the time and space coordinates of that event. So we are starting from, oh, is it playing? Okay, just, right, okay, yeah. So we are starting from the photographs, and it is really from the photographs that exist that with our techniques we are able to reconstruct more or less the space of the shop and travel through it. This is a technique that moves from image to space. It's an image to space analysis in which all the images that are very familiar are now somehow directly located in space. But computer presentation was not enough. We needed, in fact, we realized that in order to get to the degree of certainty that would make us comfortable with our determination is that we have to, in fact, construct this place in one-to-one. So this was never exhibited, it was never open to the public, but the Hakavei, the Reenactment culture, has enabled us to build that space. It was up for exactly 3 days, and in those 3 days we've undertaken many tests that you would see later. Something that is very contemporary and perhaps very interesting about that case from an analytical perspective is, of course, that this is a murder that has taken place inside an internet shop. All 4 witnesses and Teme are actually logged in to time-coded devices. So we have the logins and logouts of people coming in and out, as you would see, create a kind of a framework, a time framework, and then the space, create a spatial framework within which the incident could take place, right? So now what we needed to do was to cross-reference between testimonies. Testimonies are obviously description, verbal description of people from memory, and to locate the testimonies in between those logins and logouts. From our experience in forensic architecture, we know that very often traumatized witnesses, people that experience harsh violence, something uneasy, there is something not direct and linear when you try to reconstruct the recollection. Sometimes periods of time that appear very long to them are shorter, sometimes the other way around, sometimes there are black gaps within people's recollection. What we have here is both kind of being tuned to the logic of testimony, to how testimony operates, but we have also the boundaries of time in which the different events could take place. We also know from our experience working with many victims worldwide that people do remember sequences of events much better than description of duration. Now, verifiability, for us, a fact is verified when we can cross-reference between human memory, a digital code, in this case, on the login and logouts of the events, and physical and spatial data. When those come together, and each one of those facts supports another, we are content that we've established an element within this investigation and can move on. So here we will present to you today the next step of our analysis that is very much concentrated on a time-space framework of the event, very much narrated from the logins. So we know that around 4:30 in the afternoon, Halit Yozgat, sitting over here, is alone in the cafe. There is no one else in. At about 16:46, the first witness, Ahmed Abu Tamam, enters into the shop. He approaches Halit Yozgat at the front desk and goes to his computer in this location exactly. I think it's PC 7, and logs in at 16:46. At this moment, he switches on a game that is called Call of Duty. Now, we find it perhaps ironic that two of the witnesses are playing a game that the essence of this game, the aim of this computer game, is to shoot Nazis on a kind of imaginary battlefield, while during the same time, a Nazi is killing one of their friends. The next person to come in is Emre Ergin. He logs in at 16:48 and sits at PC 3 over here with his face to the door. He also switches on Call of Duty. The next witness to come in is Hedia Kaliskan and her daughter Seren. During this event that we investigate, she would make two phone calls. The first one begins between 16:50 and 16:51. Now, there's something important to tell you about phone call logs, that the login is conserved as in 1 minute resolution when the phone begins. So we don't know exactly within the 1 minute when it would begin, but on the end of the call, it is logged in on the second. So this is why we know that she starts within a 1 minute resolution. This is where she is and her daughter. The next person to come in is a frequent customer to this shop, Andreas Temme, who's sitting on his computer and logs in at 16:56 and switches on a dating site called ilove.de. The next one to log in is Faiz Hamadi Shabab. He would also make two phone calls. The first one would begin at 16:53, or between 16:53 and 16:54, and the second one would end at 17:03:26, right? So the time of Hamadi Shabab's two phone calls, when he enters, here he is entering into the booth. At the time he entered into the booth, Halit Yozgat was sitting, he described sitting and seeing Halit Yozgat at his desk. When he would exit his booth, Halit Yozgat would be shot twice and on the floor. So the entire event that we investigated is within the time frame of two phone calls by Faiz Hamadi Shabab. We'll hand on to Christina, who is directing this investigation at Forensic Architecture.
So the question we are called to answer is exactly what time did the murder happen within this absolute time frame of our investigation, and where was Andreas Temme at the time? So we know that although Temme logged in at 16:50, only a few minutes later, 5:01, 40 seconds, he logs out. And so the first question we were asked is it possible that Temme wasn't even present at the time of the murder? To figure that out, we had to go back to the reenactment video, which takes 1 minute and 7 seconds from the time that Teme claims to be logging out until he walks through the shop, goes to the front, tries to find Khalid, goes back, and then leaves a coin on the desk, and eventually gets into his car and leaves. So is it possible from the point that he gets into his car that the murder happened then? It leaves us 39 seconds from that moment, the last moment that Teme had the visual contact with the shop, and the time that Faiz Hamadi Shabab exits his phone booth. Therefore, this is the last moment we're investigating. And this is the time frame we're investigating. So our question here is 39 seconds enough for a series of actions leading to Khalid's death to take place? Firstly, to examine this scenario, we have to assume a very unlikely hypothesis. Khalid needs to have left the shop unattended while 5 customers were inside. But where would he go? There is no witness who saw him outside. Therefore, this scenario is already conditioned to be highly unlikely. We tested how long it would take for this series of actions to take place. After Teme would exit, at this precise moment, Khalid would return, shortly missing Teme. We have reenacted this scenario both in a digital simulation, but also in the real scale model that we have reconstructed in Berlin. Khalid would return and sit at his desk. Immediately after, the killer would come in, shoot Khalid twice, look over the desk, and then leave. Faiz Hamadi Shabab would then exit his telephone booth. Adding up these separate actions in a highly coordinated and controlled experiment amounts to 35 seconds. This is in lab conditions. In a real-life situation, there would need to be gaps between these actions. Our reenactment establishes that there would be no more than 4 seconds in total between these actions, which renders this scenario highly unlikely. In real life, actually, people don't miss out by a split second. Actually, people are not directed by someone who's telling them exactly the moment that they have to move. Further on, we look back at the witness testimonies. Hediye Kaliskan testified that she heard the sounds of the gunshots after she began her second phone call, which began between 5:01 and 5:02. She says, the connection came immediately. After my daughter came in, then I heard the sounds rapidly, one after the other, roughly as if someone was knocking against the door outside. She was sitting in the booth right next to the desk where Khalid was. Faiz Hamadi Shabab also testifies. Approximately during the first call, I heard something like a balloon exploding. I have turned around, but couldn't see because of the pictures on the glass door. I was a bit busy with entering the PIN from my MaxiCard. I tried to look through the slots on the side, but didn't see. His first call is logged between 6:54 and 5:01, sorry, and 16:54 and 16:15. No, this is also not true. His first phone call was actually, his second phone call was actually logged between 5:01 and 5:02. According to his testimony, therefore, the shots were fired before his second phone call went through, so while he was inputting the PIN number on his Maxi card. He is also the only one who was in the same room when the killing took place, and he saw the killer. He says, "For a short moment, I have noticed something, somebody going in or out. I can't describe it more precisely. I think the person went out. I stood with my back to the glass door, my head leaning to the phone." So this is what he could see. And on the corner of his eye, he saw someone move in. These testimonies allow us to reduce the possible time of the murder to be between 5:01, the earliest time that Hediye Kaliskan could have begun her second phone call, and 5:02, the latest time that Faiz Hamadi Shabab could have begun his. Therefore, it is not possible that Andreas Temme had left the internet cafe at the time of the murder. However, according to these testimonies and login data, it is possible that the killing took place within the first 20 seconds after Temme logged out. This is also supported by Ahmed Abu Tamam's testimony, who claims to have heard the loud sounds after Temme left the internet cafe, after Temme left the back room. In this case, Temme would have collided with the killer. Here, what we have done is superimposed Temme's movements in space according to his reenactment. So the timing is according to his reenactment, with the trajectory of the killer according to the timing suggested by the scenario. We then examined the possibility that Temme was still at the back of the shop, sitting at PC2 when the murder happened. This scenario has been accepted by the court in Munich. In this case, the question is whether Temme would be a witness. To be a witness, Temme would need to have some sensory contact with the event. So, was he able to hear the sounds of the gunshots while sitting at PC2? Did he smell the residual smell of gunpowder chemicals left in the space? Did he see the body of Khalid that was lying dead behind the desk when he left a coin on the desk, according to his reenactment? To test the audibility of the sound, we contracted a specialist weapon analyst, Armament Research Services, to record the sound signatures of the weapon and ammunition used for the murder. The weapon is a Cesca 83 pistol, and the ammunition is 7.65 millimeter Browning bullets. There was also a sound suppressor used. The experts went to Arizona and recorded 5
This is the
gunshots.
CZ, no suppressor.
We then compared them to the sound signatures of 3 other guns of a similar caliber. The Colt 32, that is also of the same caliber, was threaded with different sound suppressors.
This is the Colt 32 with a wet suppressor.
The suppressed gunshots were never below 130 decibels. Back in Berlin, we sourced a high decibel loudspeaker and located it at
Measurement
the position
1,
of the killer.
high level gunshot. Start now. Measurement end. Measurement 2, high level gunshot. Start now. Measurement end.
This is the calibration process from 1 meter away. We then tested the audibility of sound from Temme's seated position at PC2.
Measurement 1, gunshot. Start now. Measurement end. Measurement 2, gunshot. Start now. Measurement end.
We are corroborating these results. We have created two separate models, one of the actual space that we used in Berlin, and another one of the real space in the internet shop in Kassel. And we are doing within that sound simulations that show exactly the propagation of sound within this space. All of those results, or all of those simulations, result to the number 89.1 decibels. This is the sound level at the position of Andreas Theme's seated position at PC2. This is around 35, around 35 decibels above the maximum ambient sound level that is expected in such a space. Therefore, it is clearly audible. 89.1 decibels is the equivalent noise of a freight train at 15 meters away. When we played the sound in Berlin, everyone in the space was deafened by what they heard. It was so clear that the gunshot was actually perceptible. Therefore, we are able to determine that the gunshot was definitely audible by Andreas Theme should he be sitting at PC2. We then simulated in Berlin the amount of gases produced by the two gunshots. These gases would carry smell in them. And so when Andreas Theme would walk in the front of the space, just 38 seconds after, up to 38 seconds after the murder had happened, he should be able to smell it. This is the hypothesis. We are now collaborating with Dr. Salvador Navarro Martinez and his team at Imperial College in order to calculate the dispersion of residual particles in space. What you see here is a digital simulation of the particles that carry the smell within the space. This is coming from two gunshots. We are also looking at the way that those particles occupy space in a three-dimensional way. For us, it is important to see how this space that is created, it is a cloud within which the threshold of perceptibility is just a volume through which the witness would come through. Whether he missed the cloud or not is something that we're still investigating. We will very soon be able to determine whether the smell was perceptible to Theme. Finally, we tested Theme's ability to see the body of Khalid as he left and when he placed the coin on the front desk. We simulated his vision within our 3D model. We have calculated the digital camera to match his height and angle of vision as it is revealed on his reenactment video. So what you see here is a digital reconstruction of what he would see in space while doing the movements that he claims to be doing through his reenactment video. Of course, we are using this video as an original piece of testimony, the testimony spoken by the language of his own body. And we consider this the most favorable account to him. Therefore, our question is really, if according to him, it is possible that he missed the body. We then confirmed this result with our own reenactment in the real scale model. What you see here is an actor who is wearing a camera mounted on his head at the eye height of Andreas Temme, who is also reenacting his movements moment by moment as Temme reenacted them on his own video. The body was clearly visible in both cases. We have thus determined, with a high degree of certainty, that Temme's testimony is untruthful. Thank you.
Vielen Dank an dich, Christine und Eyal, sowie an das gesamte Team in London für eure sehr präzise und wichtige Arbeit. Wenn wir Eyal Weizmann folgen, dann stellen sich, ausgehend von den 77 Quadratmeter des Internetcafés, komplexe Fragen auf. Wie die Frage nach der Rolle des Verfassungsschutzes, der Polizei und somit auch der Rolle des Staates innerhalb des NSU-Komplexes. Auf der Mikroebene des Internetcafés kommen die komplexen Rollen und Funktionen von Handelnden des Staates zusammen, verdichten sich und werden erkennbar. Das Zusammenkommen dieser Verbindungen zwischen Mikro- und Makroebene im Internetcafé zeigt die dringliche Notwendigkeit dieser Untersuchung und sowie die politische und gesellschaftliche Dimension des Tatortes. Es zeigt auch, dass es einen gesellschaftlichen Auftrag gibt. Es macht deutlich, warum das Tribunal notwendig ist und warum das Tribunal Forensic Architecture beauftragt hat. Den lauten Klang der Schüsse, die Andreas Temme nicht gehört haben will, obwohl er ein Experte für Waffen und ein Scharfschütze ist, sind trotz eines Silencers nicht sehr durchdringend und unhörbar. Diese Schüsse wurden von juristischem Apparat nicht angehört. So wie auch die Zeugenaussagen der Betroffenen, besonders die der Familie Yozgat, in den letzten 11 Jahren nicht gehört und immer wieder gesilenced wurden. Die Praxis des Silencings, ein Ignorieren und ein Leisedrehen von Stimmen oder auch von Sound, ist eben nicht nur eine technische Handlung. Es gibt immer eine Wahl zwischen hören wollen und nicht hören wollen. Die Wahl zu hören oder nicht zu hören wollen ist immer eine politische Entscheidung und eine politische Positionierung und Handlung. So wie der Schalldämpfer der Cesca-Pistole die Lautstärke der Schüsse nicht wirklich unhörbar gemacht hat, haben wir den wahren Ablauf der Ereignisse nun gehört und wir sind alle Zeugen geworden. Das Tribunal fordert den Staat und die Öffentlichkeit auf, diese Schüsse zu hören.